My name's April Sawtell and welcome to my channel. Today what we're going to be doing is we're doing part 2 of the easy building block tutorial. What that was we put the building blocks together the other day and made our quilt top. Today we're going to be putting in the backing, the binding, and we're going to be basting it with pins. Come back for part 3, and then what we can do is work on the binding, and then our quilt will be finished. Okay, let's get started. What you're gonna need is your quilt top, some batting, some backing. I've got some seamstress chalk here. You'll need a marking utensil. I've got the seamstress chalk, some pins. You'll need your rotary cutter, some rulers. What we'll do is we'll get it all layered, all sandwiched together with our quilt top, the batting, and the backing. And we'll draw some grids on it, how we want to quilt it. We'll do a real easy technique that we'll take over to the sewing machine.
6 inches of fabric, that's what I started with. I cut off the bottom because I needed 72 inches. So in the back you can see my whole width of fabric that's still there. I've cut off the 17, I think it's about 17 inches off the bottom. And now all I've got to do is sew those two right sides together, those two here closest to the camera, and I'm going to sew those two together to make one long strip. What I'm going to do then is I'm going to attach that long strip to that long piece in the back, which is the 72 inches, and that is just folded in half on the width, the same way it came off the bolt. Okay, I'm going to go sew those up and we'll get this backing on.
And I want the whole quilt back to be nice and flat. So now what I've done is I've spread my quilt backing. I've put the right side down. I've clamped it on the table with my clamps. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the batting on. My backing face down. I've got my batting on with all my little pimples face up. And then I've got my quilt top face up. And then what you're going to do is you're just going to go around and smooth it, and you might need to just move your clamps around. You're going to want this nice and tight. You're just going to smooth it all the way around. You want about the same amount on both sides. You can get these clamps right on Amazon. They're just little claw clamps. Okay. So what I'm doing is I'm starting right here at the center. I'm pushing all the way down till I hit the table, and I'm popping myself back up. I know I've gone through all 3 layers. I'm going to do that all the way around my quilt. I'm going to do the entire top first, and I'm going to stay right now about, it's like a fistful, which will bring me in about the center of each square. Maybe a little bit more than a fistful. And as I'm doing it, I'm just kind of like pushing my fabric out gently just to make sure it's smooth. We don't want any bumps or any lumps. So you're just going to go around, and you're going to just keep doing that. Now, the other important thing is you really kind of want to stay in some sort of a line. That way when you're quilting, you can be on, you're not going to have to just keep moving the pins. You're going to take them out often anyway, but if you stay in some sort of a line or a grid of some sort, it'll be a lot easier to quilt. You're just going to want to have your quilter's pins all laid out in front of you. It just makes it easier to grab as you're working. You can move right around the quilt quite quickly. Length with it. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to go corner to corner. If you can see here, I'm going to line all these corners of the squares, and I'm just going to take my seamstress chalk, and I'm going to just go down corner to corner. You got to maneuver over those pins a little bit. I'm going to do that. You can see the line here. I'm going to do that all the way around. After I do that side, I'm just going to turn this around, and I'm going to come back in at the other angle. So either with a ruler or with your square. And then you're just gonna make a line, go from your corner here, and just follow it down to your corner here. Here at my Juki TL 2010Q, and I've got my walking foot on. I'm gonna use a walking foot for this because it's so thick, 3 layers. And even though I'm just gonna be sewing, I'm not actually using like a quilting foot. I'm going to be having it's still in sewing machine mode, not free motion. It's still going to grip the fabric and pull it right through smoothly where it is so thick. So all I'm going to do, put my presser foot down, and I'm just going to make sure, this is very important because this is where we get bunched up. So if you keep your quilt, always make sure you've got that bottom pulled up. It can get folded under. All you're gonna do is you're just gonna go down to the pin, take the pin out. I always start in about the middle of the quilt, and especially with straight lines, and just work my way. I'll go to all one side, and then I'll go to the other side. So I'm just going to follow my lines. Go whatever speed works for you. And whatever the speed, my machine does have a speed on it. You can put it at whatever speed you'd like. And if it doesn't have a speed, just go the speed that's comfortable to you. You only want to be about a hand's length before you adjust. You'll probably want to keep all of this extra right on top of your lap, because what happens is you don't want that drag. You don't want your machine to pull. It just won't come out evenly. You'll start skipping stitches or whatnot. So always be sure that you don't have a drag. Keep it as flat as possible. What you're doing is, as you're pushing, as the machine's taking this through, you're just like spreading it out just to make sure there's no clumps underneath that are going to be bunches of fabric. You want everything to be lying flat on all 3 layers. So, and just remember, as you come to a pin, just pull your pin out. I always close my pins right then and just put them back in the bag, just so I don't have to come back to that step. Going point to point, and then you're just going to even it out again. You can see I couldn't reach any further, so now I just spread it out again, adjust. So I'm just going point to point. And if you get to a point where you might have been off with your line, that's okay. Just, you can see where you're going. That was just a guide. I can see my line right here. I can see I made another line there, which I'm not going to follow. I'm following this line. Okay, and then you're going to want to make another adjustment here. And I'm going to be coming to the edge here in just a second. Okay, I'll cut my thread. And all I'm going to do now is I'm going to stay at the same, I'm not going to turn my quilt. I'm going to stay right in the same angle. I'm just going to drag my quilt back down to my lap. And then you can see my line here. I'm going to find another line, and I can see it right here. Drop my presser foot, and I'll just do the same thing. And you just want to remember to make sure nothing's bunching up underneath. You're feeling that it's nice and flat, and you're just going to come down to your pin. These gloves are great. They just, you know, if you try doing it, just go ahead and try it, actually. Try pushing it without the gloves. You're going to find you don't have a lot of control. As soon as you put the gloves on, you've got all the control of your hands. So, just point to point. So after I get this all done on all sides, then I'll start working the other side. And then I'm gonna have to go in I'll have to go in the opposite way because I've got like the X's. You can glide it right back down under your machine instead of pulling the whole thing out. So now you can see I've got the two lines here. I've got one here and one here. Okay, that's how spaced out they're going to be along the whole quilt. But then when I put the other line, it'll just put a nice X right through the fabric. Okay, glide over to your next line, right here. Make sure you're not bunched up, and just continue. Here I can see that I made my line. I don't know how I made my line like that, but I'm gonna make my own line now, and I'm gonna just go point to point, because that line is a little off. Just remember, those are just guides. Okay, I'm going to stop here, and I'm just going to look at the back really quick to make sure that we've got nice tension. Because we should have done that on the very first line that we made. I did behind the scene, I did look, but I forgot to tell you that we really need to look to make sure your tension is okay. Because there's nothing like getting this far along and realizing your tension is a mess. Then you're going to be pulling out stitches. I say I don't pull a lot of stitches out, but on that I'm going to pull them out just to get it. You know, you can't have that all off on the back like that because it's all going to show up. So be sure to look every once in a while to make sure your tension is good. Okay, you're just going to do this through the entire quilt. All I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring my ruler to my innermost piece of fabric on my side. I've already made this one cut here. This is my 20-inch ruler. I've got my rotary cutter. I'm just going to slice right up. I'm going to go ahead and drag my quilt toward me. And I'm going to just keep my ruler here. Line this up. And I can also, there's so many different ways to do this. I could actually look at the seams. Follow a nice seam line all the way up, and that way you'll be pretty consistent with your seams. Okay, and then I'm just going to, yep, that looks good. I'll give that a nice cut right up. I'm going to follow up. I'm only going to have 3 cuts with this quilt. Okay, line that up, and I'm going to look for my seam. I'm right on my seam here. And I'll give that a cut up. Okay, and now I'm at the top. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to turn my quilt again. Making sure it's all, there's nothing out underneath it. Like this. Just want everything nice and flat. All right, I'm going to take this again Now I've got a nice seam down here, the line at the bottom, a square, and I'm just going to square this on the sides. Again, looking for my innermost piece of fabric. And I'll pull this towards me, straighten it as I go. Line myself up, looking at my seams again. Just pick a line that you kind of want to follow. You might not be right on, and that's okay. And just give that a nice cut. Remember to always use a sharp blade in your rotary cutter so you don't get stuck and get jagged on the when you're cutting it. Turn this again. Just gonna go all the way around the quilt. Making sure nothing is underneath it. I should have just cut that little piece off right there. Okay. All right. Line it up. My innermost is here, so I can just see that what needs to be cut. And I'm cutting off a lot of that, where I basted. I put a basting stitch. But that's okay because it held it down in the areas. It was just so loose. So I just wanted it held down. It will be cut off in some areas and some areas that won't be. You can see there's not that much. Some areas there's just really not much at all. And then in other areas, well, just means that, maybe your stitch wasn't right on or something wasn't perfectly straight. But you can square it right up in the end. So see some stitches, some seams I'll follow. Bring that down a little bit there. Equal over here. I can see my sides. Push it firmly with my ruler and go right off it. Okay, one more turn. What's really the most important is not to have a lot of drag and not to have anything under your quilt. No extra, like this not be folded up, or you will get, you don't want to cut into your quilt that you've just got finished with, Oops, I'm going to turn my ruler. Okay. I'm going to follow a seam line. This one. Okay, our quilt is squared up, and if you want to check yourself, you just fold it in half. And if you want to see the back, it's all like diamonds is how that turned out. Now, if you want to check yourself, you just fold it in half, grab corner to corner, and then guide yourself holding all of the pieces. Give it a shake out and go to your other corner. Corner to corner, shake it out, and now you should be able to fold this corners to corners and be able to fold in half. And then hold all 4 layers and bring them together. Just like that. This piece is gonna come up a little bit. Then you can flatten it out. And you have got yourself a beautiful quilt. So our quilt is almost complete. All we've got to do now is put the binding on. I'm going to do part 3 to this video, which will be the binding. It'll bring this quilt to completion, and I hope you will join me. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. Have a great day. I'll see you next time, and remember to keep it simple. Thanks for watching. Bye.